I'm Ralph Becker. I'm the mayor of Salt Lake City for another little while. And have with me some folks who are going to be speaking as well about this really quite remarkable achievement for this building. Vicki Bennett, who's head of our sustainability division, Garth Shaw, excuse me, with GSBS, and David Hart, who's with MOCA Systems, who've been really critical to what we are celebrating today. This has been a project that I'll say has been really more than 8 years in the making. In 2007, the year that I ran for election, a public safety building bond failed for the voters to build a new public safety building. After a lot of work with our emergency response folks, police, fire, and others, we refined that proposal, reduced the cost of it by more than a third, and brought it back to the voters in 2009, and it was passed by almost a 2-to-1 margin. So it's a pretty remarkable turnaround for that, and it's a reflection on, I think, on everybody's hard work in redoing the proposal. From that point forward, though, we also decided that we were going to try to achieve something that had not been done before, and that was to design and develop a net zero building and try to achieve the highest possible standards for leading energy and environmental design, otherwise known as LEED. Did I get the acronym and the words right with that? Otherwise known as LEED status for this building. And there are some things that we knew we were going to do that were expensive associated and kind of unusual associated with this building that made it unusually expensive per square foot, that related to making sure this build would not only withstand an earthquake, but would be operational after a large earthquake, which we anticipate we're sort of in a 50-year window, according to geologists who study our seismic standards. But we also decided that we were going to do everything we could, as I mentioned, around achieving these highest standards. And I should say that the budget had already been established. This was a $125 million project, which is mighty expensive. But it did not include, when we started, achieving these exceptionally high standards for a building. But we believed that it was important that Salt Lake City both set an example around developing and designing this kind of a building, but also given the fact we don't build buildings for our city for 10 years or 20 years as is done in the commercial sector, so we could look at this building in a way in terms of a longer-term return on investment, obviously for taxpayers, but also for the citizenry and taxpayers of Salt Lake City. We achieved that goal of net zero, and we've celebrated that with the opening of the building and with other factors. And I thank our police and fire and other emergency responders for going along with a lot of the changes that weren't just the building, but in terms of the way the building operates and the way people function in the building. And I also commend this incredible team of people who, throughout city government and who worked with us on our team, who were continually going back and reviewing and reworking this project to achieve something that folks told us when we started we couldn't do. And so it's a real reflection, I think, on this community, on the ingenuity and on the expertise and knowledge in this community that we achieved that net zero status. But today we're here to celebrate an additional status that is, I think, has only been done maybe 5 times previously.
7 times in Utah.
7 times in Utah and only 2 times with this most recent set of standards. And that is that our public safety building has achieved platinum LEED status, which is the highest possible status that a building can receive for sustainability. Yeah, as it says here, it is the 9th project in Utah. And it has been the result of just an incredible effort, and a lot of these folks are here, so I'm not going to mention everybody here. of a team, as I said, that just kept going back over and over and over again when we were told, oh, what do we do about this? Or we can't do that. And so I'm looking at David Brems, obviously Vicki, Bennett, and our team, David Hart, who we brought on, and who did amazing work up at the Capitol, and then joined us as a consultant here to help us achieve our goals. So this is an astounding achievement, and it's something I think all of Salt Lake City should be proud of, and sets an example certainly for what can be done and should be done in terms of future leaders. You know, I just came back a week or so ago from Paris, where I was part of the COP21 delegation from the US. And we know that we can accomplish what we need to address the crisis and challenge of climate change. But it takes looking in two primary directions. One of them is our transportation system and how we reduce our pollutants from our vehicles around fossil fuels. And the other one, and actually when it comes to carbon emissions, the larger component is around our built environment and around buildings. And this building was pointed to among local government officials who played a prominent role in the climate change talks as an example of what can and should be done. That if you work hard, if you get creative, if you're persistent, we can reduce, and in the case of this building, effectively eliminate our fossil fuel use on a net basis as a way to achieve carbon emission reductions. And so as I'm going out of office, I certainly look at this building, both in terms of getting it done, which I know our emergency responders particularly appreciate, having a place they can work in and feel safe in, and having a building that really adds to really, I think, the beauty of both our city campus of facilities, but also to our downtown, and achieves the sustainability levels that really have never been achieved before with a building of this type. So I thank really everybody involved in this. It's a pretty remarkable achievement. I know that the team has been getting award after award, both nationally and internationally, for this building, so I commend you on the combination of incredible work that's been done here. So now let me turn the time over to Vicki Bennett, and we'll hear from others. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks everybody for being here. This really is such an exciting day to be able to get this done and announced right now, because it really shows the teamwork. It shows what we were able to accomplish, and something that probably I have the fond memory of, and Curtis Clark, who's with GSBS, and I talk about quite a bit, was that first glimmer of an idea. And Curtis and I were at the Greenbuild conference in Phoenix, and it was the week after the bond passed. And he and I were attending some of these sessions on this brand new idea called a net zero building. And I remember running into him in the hall and kind of overwhelmed. It's one of these giant conferences. And we just sat down and started to talk. And we said, what if that new building that we just voted for could be net zero? And that was the first time that I know of that anybody really said those words together. And we came back and started talking about it. And we talked to the design team, and we talked to the mayor's office, and Curtis wasn't even working for GSBS at the time. The GSBS didn't even have the contract, but it just all fell together so well that, having an energy engineer then end up working for the company that got the design contract, and we were able to have the support from everyone, the meetings we sat through. I still smile at how we were trying to balance. Everything you always talk about is it's a balance. How do you balance energy efficiency and the upfront cost with the needs of police and fire, who were such great team members with us, and they were wanting to ensure that they were getting the building they needed, and we were constantly pushing. Yeah, that's good. We really want that. We also want to ensure we have all this long-term efficiency in it. How do we do that within our current budget? And as the mayor said, it was a remarkable project that in that way, that we've really started to learn that it wasn't an if or this, that, but it could be everything. And I think that's a really good way to look at things as we're moving forward on all of our net zero and emission reductions. You know, you hear people say, well, if we're having these requirements to reduce emissions, it's going to hurt the economy. Truthfully, no, it isn't. It's not an one or the other. It can easily be both, and that's something that we've seen. And as we're starting to look at national and international issues and the fact that we really do need to be more energy efficient, help with air pollution, reduce our carbon emissions. You know, we may have international treaties, but it's going to happen here. It's going to be those of us sitting in this room working to implement the actual actions on the local level. And this is the most fantastic example of that really being such a success. And it's a state-of-the-art building. It's absolutely beautiful. We created, you know, on top of the rest, something that is functional but a wonderful place to be in. And then off-site, we have our solar farm, first solar farm that the city actually installed, and just under 1 megawatt of solar, and you can see that if you're driving down 215 on the west side of town. And again, something for us to really be able to point to and say, hey, we did that. This is our project. This is something that is, I guess, a legacy for all of us. So I'm not going to go into the numbers. I'm going to let Garth Shaw from GSBS do that. And I just want to thank everyone, and I know there's going to be a lot of thank yous, and I'm not going to try and go through everybody, but I think it's something where everybody who's here really can understand that we all played a part, and it was, you know, maybe some of it a little minuscule idea that popped up, or a lot of us put a lot of heart and soul into this, but as a result, we've got LEED Platinum, and it's something we're going to be able to show off for a long time. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Vicki and Mayor Becker. GSBS is thrilled to have earned the trust of Salt Lake City and Mayor Becker as we've worked to create not only a LEED Platinum building, but a net zero and carbon neutral building. The Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design rating system, or LEED, is a building certification program that recognizes best-in-class building strategies and practices. It is intended to create and promote market-transforming sustainability. This building represents the pinnacle of what that LEED rating system is created to achieve. The project is only the 7th LEED Platinum building in the state of Utah and only the 2nd certified under the newer LEED version 3 rating system. No other platinum projects in Utah, and only a very small handful of them in the nation, combine such a high level of complexity and sheer size. The building's uncompromising approach to resilience and security could have easily trumped our sustainability goals, but the city and the design team didn't let that happen. Success in a complicated project like this relies on an understanding of how all of the building systems impact each other, and we have a deep search for looking for efficiency opportunities. The project team worked with Salt Lake City to identify numerous efficiency opportunities, and together we turned them into effective designs. Through this type of approach, we all worked together and created something truly outstanding for Salt Lake City citizens and for the Salt Lake City government. This LEED Platinum building is outstanding for the citizens it serves. The building helps an effort to keep our air clean. This building is designed to reduce carbon output by over 2,000 tons per year. The EPA research shows that fewer greenhouse gases clean up our air globally. The building design reduces energy consumption by 81%. This is a dramatic reduction in fossil fuel consumption and with a direct impact on the quality of our air. Direct energy savings are expected to be just under $500,000 a year, and although many of the building systems utilize more expensive technology, Our search for efficiency opportunities allowed these building systems to be substantially smaller. This evened out maintenance costs and allowed an 8-year payback on building-related improvements taken as a whole. Salt Lake citizens can be very proud of this project and what it's achieved. This LEED Platinum building is also outstanding for Salt Lake City government. The project supports the city's climate response strategies, utilizing its 81% reduction in energy consumption, its 380 kilowatt on-site PV array, and its megawatt of off-site PV, and continually decreasing carbon offset purchases. This is a carbon neutral project. Sustainability has added to the project's resilience. Dramatic energy efficiency means the building's public safety functions are less reliant on the energy grid. In a disaster, the entire building can operate off of its solar PV, solar hot water, and emergency generator systems. Salt Lake City employees can also expect higher satisfaction and lower absenteeism rates. This is due to the amount and quality of fresh air and daylighting in their working environments. This was all done on time and on budget. The Salt Lake City government can be very proud of what they've created with taxpayers' dollars. Well, our firm has done many sustainability projects, but this one is truly different. None have been more rewarding and successful as this project. Our team of very talented architects and very talented engineers is fortunate to have been involved with Salt Lake City, with MOCA, and with Oakland Construction in creating this project. And I'm very pleased to be here today to share with you all the fact that now we are LEED certified, as Platinum certified as well. Thank you.
I'm going to try this. First of all, let me say how pleased we are to be here today. You know, when we were designing this room, I always thought it'd be cool to stand here. Now I'm not so sure. So, I want to go back and talk a little bit about the very early days for just a minute on this project. We had worked very hard with Mayor Becker and Helen Langen to reduce the budget from, I think, $190-some million down to $125 million. And as the mayor mentioned, it did not include net zero energy or even the thought of trying to reduce to platinum. We were focused on hitting silver, and we thought that that would be an acceptable level of sustainability. So we got the bond passed, and we were all pretty excited. We started putting the team together, and I get a call from the mayor's office, and I go over and I sit down with the mayor, and the mayor said, David, I have 3 challenges for you. 1, it has to be done on budget. And I said, okay, we can do that. We'd worked through that, and we felt pretty good about that. He said, you can't kill any trees. I had a little reputation from moving a few trees at the Capitol. And he said, and finally, I want it to be net zero. And the first thought that went through my head is, that is not possible. We don't have any money for it. We haven't put aside anything for it. I had no idea what net zero meant, to be perfectly honest, but I knew I had a steering committee of 15 individuals, some from the police and some from fire, who carried guns, and were not going to be overly happy about this. But as you can see, it was able to be achieved. I think the great story behind this is that net zero energy, if you really put your heart and soul into it, as the team, the designers and the engineers and the owners all bought into it. The police and fire were more than supportive. They recognized that this would be a great benefit, and you can see $500,000 a year in cost savings to the city is nothing to laugh at. But they were 100% supportive, and they jumped in and they were willing to make that happen, and everybody was very supportive, and it couldn't be better. So I want to take just a minute and thank some people who and organizations who made this happen. These buildings don't just build themselves. It takes a tremendous number of people working together to make these things come together. As we mentioned, we had a steering committee of about 15 people that was made up of both city administration. It was made up of the police organization, Tim Doubt and others, and Brian Dale from the fire department were on that, and we were grateful for their support and for their contributions. This building had to not only meet the energy goals, and like I said, I couldn't kill any trees, but we also had to deal with a lot of public concerns. In the early days, there were a number of people that were very concerned that this building was going to be a fortress, that people would not be allowed inside, that it would not be a place for people. And the mayor really wanted this to be part of the downtown city government center, and that meant that it needed to be open and available for festivals and for all of the different activities that take place within the city, and it needed to be a good neighbor. It also needed to make sure that it accomplished the goals and the program requirement for the police and fire, and that was no easy task. This is a very, very secure building. And it has to not only have a public side, but it has to have a secure private side. In addition to that, we were overlaying this net zero energy requirement on it, which meant we needed to get light into the middle of the building, and that removed all of the walls. And so we were going to make a complete culture change within both police and fire. They were coming out of offices and out of sections and working together across the board to serve the citizens of the state of Utah. And so I would like to thank, first of all, the mayor. I think it was his leadership and his guidance and his direction and his unrelentingness, I guess is that the right word, to really push this. Every time I would come over and tell him that we were pushing up against the budget, he would just remind me we couldn't go over budget, and he was not backing down from the net zero. And you need a leader. You need somebody who will stand there and be willing to keep pushing even though your project manager is telling you it may not be the best idea. I want to thank the steering committee for working together. This was not easy. It was a huge balancing act, and they had to make a lot of concessions for a lot of different issues to make this happen. I'd also like to thank the city engineering department, Max Peterson and Joel Harrison, who have retired from the organization, who helped put the team together and help the selection process with GSBS and with Oakland Construction. I would also like to thank Steve England, who passed away while working on this project. He was on his way to work one morning and was killed tragically, and we all missed him. And then Sean Fife, who was the person who worked with us from city engineering the most. I'd also like to thank the Salt Lake City Maintenance Department and Jim Cleland and others who worked with him. They came to every single meeting that we had, and they were more than supportive. There were times when they weren't real crazy about putting the mechanical system up above and wanted it in the basement, or we had to make trade-offs, but they again joined the team and were supportive of that as well. I would like to thank and express all of our appreciation, and I think the city's appreciation, to GSBS for the work they did. I remember after they were selected, I went over and I met with Dave Brems and Mike Stransky, and I said, this has to be an iconic building. This was before I knew we were also going to do net zero. And we started moving down that road because we wanted the building to be a place for people. We wanted it to represent the very best that the city had, in that it's representing the public face of the police and fire, and we wanted the public to feel comfortable here and to be able to come in. And we had had a tremendous amount of concern raised by the public. I also want to thank Curtis, because without Curtis and his innovative way of approaching net zero, we probably would have had to spend more money. But Curtis was brilliant in the way he approached it. It was not your typical way of doing it, and I couldn't even begin to take the time to express all of the different systems that Curtis figured out to put into this building, such as 2 different radiant floor heating systems to keep the exterior at one temperature and the interior at another temperature. And all of that combined went into all of that. I'd also like to thank the mechanical engineers of Colvin, structural engineers of Dunn, and the electrical engineers of Spectrum, who without their support and their hard work on this, it would not have been possible. And then finally, I'd like to thank Oakland Construction, who jumped right in and again was very supportive, saw the vision. Garland's here with us today from Oakland, and as the superintendent and the guy responsible for building this building, he really worked hard with all of his subs to make sure that the quality was not only there, but that the care and concern about how this building was going to function as a net zero building was there. Just a few key subs that I'd like to thank. Daniel's Painting, the design team, Boswell Wasatch, CCI Mechanical, Taylor Electrical, LGC, and Intermountain Wind and Solar. And these were all the people who had to be very carefully monitored and scrutinized and had to provide a ton of paperwork and just an exorbitant amount of detail so that we would be able to document this and submit all of this paperwork. And last but not least, I'd like to thank Chad Jones, who was our project manager, who spent late nights working with this team and many hours on the weekend and gave up a lot of his own personal time to be able to make this building work. And so with that, I'd like to thank the mayor and everybody here. We do have an unveiling that we would like to do out in the lobby. And so I have been asked to, rather than close the meeting here, that we all move now to the lobby, and we will have the mayor make the presentation out there.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
So well done. All right, here we go. Well, congratulations. This is literally a building for the ages. And people not only enjoy it, who have a chance to visit it and use it and all of its features, but people will be living in, working in, because it actually becomes a living in kind of building for many decades to come. So anyways, congratulations to everybody. It's well done.
Thank you.